Maintain communications, data here again. The leader is determined by the vote of many men, and though he's only human and slightly overweight, he controls and manipulates the whole United States. I called to the White Castle. Secret Service on the phone giving me a hassle. He said the information I requested was denied. Before he hung up the phone, he took a deep breath, stopped, and replied, "This is our world." Yeah, I'm back on my shit again. Only this time I figured I'd actually talk about some of the shit you guys actually come to the channel to hear about. Fucking video games. I was talking to Dee Dee the other day. It was either yesterday or the day before. I don't fucking remember. Twitch.tv/dualdire_ for Rocket League and Spider-Man related shit. And we got to talking about like day one patches for some fucking reason. He was talking about how he didn't like them and shit, and I'm like, it depends on what the day one patch is. Because, the first console game I remember having a day one patch was The Darkness. And its patch was like 2 megabytes and it was on disk. And then you compare and contrast that to other games' day one patches, like the first patch for fucking The Witcher 3 was 15 goddamn gigabytes. Fucking perspective difference. And you think, why are they shipping broken games? Well, compare that to Skull, the Hero Slayer, which, if you ignore the content updates, has had 4 bug fix patches, with lots of bug fixes. And in over 80 hours of playing the game, I never once encountered one of the bugs that was listed. So you think about a lot about day one patches, and chances are, if you played through the entire game 3 times, you probably wouldn't have even noticed the thing that they patched. Sure, the thing they patched might be completely game-breaking if you encounter it, like it would prevent you from being able to continue, but sometimes it's just something that was missed because it's so rare. And, like I say, compare and contrast it to The Witcher 3. And that got me thinking about a conversation I was having with another person on the Discord. I don't remember the fucking name. You guys change your goddamn screen handles and profile pictures like fucking every other fucking week, so you can't stay on brand for anything. You fixed my pretty little fucking hair. Yeah, I know it makes me kind of look like Weird Al. My older sister gave me that shit all the time. It's when I let it air dry. I don't fucking do anything with it on work days unless I'm filming. And this doesn't count. I'm gonna put it back there again. Anyway, and that got me thinking about the guy that I was talking to, because he was complaining about Doom Eternal's paid skins. And he was like, well, I prefer the way The Witcher did it, because it was free. And it's like, so? And then talking to Dee Dee about it, it kind of reminded me of that conversation, and I'm going to put my hair back here again because still not a very flattering angle. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, wait a minute. He likes The Witcher 3 DLC because he thinks it's quote-unquote free, but he was using that as a defense for what he liked because he doesn't remember why The Witcher came out with free skins for its characters. Remember when I said the first patch for The Witcher 3 was fucking 15 gigabytes? The install I guess since I played it on PlayStation 4, the game's full size is something like 32 gigabytes before the DLC. And the first patch, which was necessary because the game did not function as intended in any way at release, the first patch was 15 gigabytes. That means every single zero of data in that game, half of them had to be corrected or outright replaced. And that's why they gave you that cosmetic DLC and extra dialogue in the game. It's because they released a product that was not fit for purpose. That's very different than, a day one patch that fixes bugs that you may not even ever encounter. And that's why that shit was free. They had to fix something that they sold that was broken. And one of the things he was talking about was, well, he just liked how it was in the old ways. And I'm like, the old ways weren't fucking better. And that's when it kind of reminded me that I'm fucking old. When you hit your 15th epoch, your 42nd eon, walking what you mortals call the earth, there comes a time where you have to go back to where you came from and spread your wisdom. It's a little term I like to use when describing my channel. It's my grim apotheosis, my returning to give you all the good news that I've learned throughout my travels and tribulations and all that stupid shit. And that's what I wanted to talk about, was the old ways, because the old ways weren't better. You know, think about the gaming crash of the 80s, where video games stopped being a fucking thing in North America until Nintendo started marketing them as toys. What caused that? Well, a complete failure of faith in the industry caused that. The two games that are most credited with causing the crash, it's only a slightly wrong, quote unquote, accreditation, because 2 games don't cause an entire industry to fucking die and disappear forever. But they are exemplifications of what caused it. And those 2 games were E.T. and Pac-Man. The Atari release of Pac-Man. Well, everyone knows what happened with E.T. Overblown budget, rushed job, pushed to market as a broken bucket of fuck. Well, how is that any different from what has followed for the past 30 years? Let's talk about Atari's E.T. then. Well, Atari's E.T. was nothing like any other version of the game. It was trash and everyone hated it. It sold 7 million copies. 7 million. AAA Industries still hope to get even half that. RE8 in its first week or so only sold 3 million. Atari's Pac-Man sold 7. That's why that crash happened. And so you think, okay, well, maybe not go back that far. Let's go maybe just back to the 90s. Things were better in the 90s, weren't they? No. No, they fucking weren't. They were exactly the same. Biggest RPG of the 90s, Daggerfall. A game that, at launch, and to this day, is such a gigantic broken bucket of fuck that the procedural world generation, the procedural dungeon generation, so even if you ignore traveling in the world and just use the fast travel only, just playing the dungeons can still create a brick wall that you can't progress through and complete the game. The procedural generation of the world would make your save file so big that you had to completely uninstall the game, delete every last 1 and 0 of data, and reinstall it and start over from scratch. So the old ways weren't better in development. When you released a broken bucket of fuck, the day 1 patch never came. When a game released a completely broken, unplayable piece of shit, it stayed that way. Fucking forever. It never got fixed. Daggerfall is semi-playable if you know exactly what you're doing and how to avoid all the bugs now. Or you could get the Unity port, which fixes those issues. Okay, well, what about games being released complete and whole? Still didn't fucking happen. Cut content is the bread and butter of major corporations. Cutting corners, just the same. I can name a million N64 titles that were unplayable at release, that had more cut content than was in the final release. So what the fuck is different? Okay, well, maybe the industry as a whole. What about the journalism, the enthusiastic press? Paid shill up their own ass press has existed. I'm not going to say before I walked this earth because that would contradict my intro, but before I walked this fucking earth. Before what the government believes is my birth date, people were nothing but paid shills in major magazines reviewing video games. That shit's always existed. Well, I don't like it when they sell content later down the road that doesn't vastly improve the game. So fucking what? It's better than them making the game a slog to play and then selling you fast lanes. I paid for the costume DLC for Bullet Witch back in the day. I would much rather throw $8 at Bethesda, id Microsoft, whoever the fuck they fly their flag over now, for a Judge Dredd costume pack for fucking Doom Eternal, than never have anything change. Yes, Doom Eternal had its problems. Yes, they promised you a $20 campaign, delivered you 10, then charged you for the rest. But you know what? It was good enough that it was worth the fucking cost on the tin. And they then put out those 2 expansions in a single fucking year. And it's not $20 fucking for horse armor that only works on one fucking horse. I wish it was like the old ways. So you wish that the games came out, didn't fucking work, and then they sold you the fixed version at full price the next year? You want to pay twice for Resident Evil just to use the analog stick? Is that it? Well, better games came out back then. No, they didn't. Yes, we love fucking Thief and shit and all that more than we like most shit that comes out these days, but Thief was still a broken bucket of fuck, guys. It was experimental. It was cobbled together out of next to nothing in the last fucking hour. And that's a slight exaggeration. A slight exaggeration. But that's the thing that you need to remember and understand. Well, you can't remember it because you weren't around for it. But I remember fucking everything. I remember the screen name of the person that was having that conversation with me, but not who they are now because they changed their shit like 3 fucking times. I'm sure you'll present yourself in the comments or on the Discord to go, ha, that was me, Necro, fuck you. But the things weren't better in the 90s for gaming. They were just the same. It's just that when a game needed a patch to be fixed, that patch never came. Or worse yet, you had to pay full price for the fixed and functioning version. So what's it gonna be? Are you just gonna be mad at $5 costumes forever because the alternative is nothing? Are you gonna be mad at them because the alternative is loot boxes? Or are you just gonna say, meh, doesn't affect me, and move on with your life? Like, just move on with your fucking life. You know, a lot of game development was better in the 90s. But a lot of the result of that game development was just as bad. If you want what the 90s provided for game development and in games, stop playing AAA games. All that shit is still right over there in the indie section. You know? Nothing was better back then. It was all the same. Not even the names have changed. It's a cycle. 3D came and went like 4 times in the past 25 years. Add in the 90s, the full 90s, because 25 years would put you at 96. Add in the full 90s, and you get at least 2 more times in which 3D was a gimmick. VR is a gimmick. It's a gimmick I love. I love fucking gimmick controllers. I'm still gonna get Steel Battalion one day, I fucking swear to God. But you got to understand, all this shit is cyclical, and it's been around for longer than you have. It's been around for longer than the government thinks I have. You know? There were no better days. They were just different. Resident Evil 1 had tank controls because when Resident Evil 1 came out, the analog stick was not available on the PlayStation. That's why you controlled like shit. Because it was a D-pad, 4 face buttons, start, select, and then the bumpers and triggers. L1, R1, R2, L2. And then, I believe it was Resident Evil 2 came out. And then Resident Evil 2 analog mode released. Just, guys, it's all the fucking same. There were no better days. In fact, we're probably in several steps up better situation than we ever were back then. Innovation has dropped off the face of the map for a huge portion of it, but that comes and goes in waves. That just, it comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes. And these shitty videos are just about me brain dumping and talking about stuff that I would otherwise have made an episode on, but just don't really require me to go through the process of getting my hair all pretty, doing my fucking makeup, and then turning on a fucking camera. Just fuck that. Seems I'm being chased by some fat rednecks in white hoods. I think they're trying to kill me. Well, what do you mean? It seems they got a problem with the fact that I'm green. I guess on the dirt ball they all hate each other. If it ain't where you're from, it's your skin color. Let me give something a try now. Hold up. Bam! What was that? I smoked them. But what really turns off my tentacles is their relationships. They swell each other's lips. I see men that ain't shit in their daily life, so he come home drunk and beat their wife. She forgives him when he says he didn't mean it. You ask me, they can all suck my piddly lip. I give up, Captain. Beat me back to Zuppaluvi. Oh, another thing, they love to watch horror movies, but you're not allowed to be scary on a CD. They tried to ban this one group, ICP. I went and seen him in concert, and Jay grabbed me by the head, and then he took his microphone and said, "This is our world."